This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a website or domain, go to squarespace.com/GeorgeHolden to get 10% off your first purchase. After you buy your first camera, you inevitably discover the big world of interchangeable lens cameras. Then you pick up a zoom, a prime, maybe another prime, a flash, and you fill your camera bag with all of this lovely kit.
Until your bag is so heavy, you can barely make it out the door. So you just stay inside and don't shoot anything.
These must-have accessories or lenses are great because they get us excited to experiment with photography again. But after a while, that excitement wears off, as it always does. They suddenly end up on a shelf, gathering dust after that excitement fades. Until one day we take stock and actually assess the equipment that we use and we really need, versus the equipment that we keep around.
Just in case.
I'm embarrassed to admit this, but there's something I have to show you, as little as I want to. I have 1, 2, 3, and let's say 4 individual 35mm full frame prime lenses. I can only use one at a time. Why do I have 4? Of course, one of them is attached to this RX1, but this is emblematic of a problem I've always had with this hobby of photography. We convince ourselves that each new edition is somehow better in a weird specific way compared to all the other options we have, only to actually test them side by side and realise there are no differences that you can spot with the naked eye. I'd like to take a moment to share with you the sponsor of this video, Squarespace. I've been using Squarespace long before they sponsored the channel. I use Squarespace to run my store and publish my free monthly newsletter using their email campaign tools, which make it super simple. Updating my street photography portfolio using their image galleries could not be easier, and this is the perfect way to showcase your photography portfolio outside of social media. Their easy to use templates and drag and drop design tools mean that you can make a professional looking website with no prior web design skills. Why not get started at squarespace.com with a free trial? And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/GeorgeHolden to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. You may be familiar with this chart. You've likely seen it in many different means. When we start photography, we're at the beginning of this bell curve. We got ourselves a hand-me-down camera and we just started taking photos of anything we could see. But as we progress, we learn that little bit more and we think, wow, I need a specific lens, like a 1.4 version of my lens, or I need the flash, I need the filters, I need the tripod. We acquire all this knowledge and all this gear, then just makes our hobby much more expensive and actually doesn't improve any of our images. Then by the time we reach the end of this bell curve down at the bottom, we suddenly realise that after everything we've learned and everything we've bought, we just need to point our cameras and take photos of things that interest us. And that's the entire game. The frustrating thing is that when we reach the end of this bell curve, we find our gear looking like the gear we originally started out with. When I first started this YouTube channel and my freelance career, I started out with just one Canon DSLR, one 28mm prime and one 85mm prime. And that was all I used. Now, having grown, acquired, expanded, experimented, failing countless times and learning a lot, I find myself scaling back once again to using the bare essential tools that feel like an extension of myself rather than overcomplicating things. Genuinely, in the last 4 years, I've had the exact same microphone and the exact same 2 main lenses that I use on everything. Everything else comes and goes, but the actual core kit stays the same. And incidentally, that is the kit I never talk about on YouTube, because it's so boring and reliable. And you know what else is boring and reliable? My film simulation presets. I have 3 different preset packs: Naturally Filmic presets, Kodak film stock presets, and Fujifilm film stock presets. And you can get all of these in my preset bundle pack, and the first 20 people to use this code will get 20% off my entire store. They're some of the best film simulation presets you can buy, and I highly recommend checking them out. And seriously, that discount code is going to expire after 20 people. We each get stuck in our ways with our photography. We make little to no effort to actually consciously improve the skill that we're so passionate about over the course of 12 months. Instead, we pick up new gear and think that that's going to be the answer, but it never is. If you just rely on new purchases to reignite your passion with photography, this is where you're going to end up. Tired, uncreative, unfulfilled, and considering selling everything and just taking up golf instead.
Fuck me in a
You might feel a lack of motivation, you might feel like you're in a dip of creativity, but that doesn't mean you're not creative. That doesn't mean you can't be a great photographer. Sometimes you just need something else to reignite that spark. And this is where giving yourself a project comes in. One reason I love creating videos for YouTube is having the space to be able to express myself without the approval of anyone else. So when I make a silly intro like I did in this video, or tell an interesting story like I did in another video recently, or complain about camera bags, I like that there is no client. This is just, I had this idea, I want to share with you. I set myself a project and I try to accomplish that project to the best of my ability and hopefully get a video out once a week on a Thursday. Giving yourself a project, which does not need to be a YouTube video. These things are hard work when you do them properly, but give yourself a project that feels attainable, but it also feels just that little bit outside of your comfort zone, where you do need to push yourself.
The other thing I would say is that if you feel safe in the area that you're working in, you're not working in the right area. Always go a little further into the water than you feel you're capable of being in. Go a little bit out of your depth, and when you don't feel that your feet are quite touching the bottom, you're just about in the right place to do something exciting.
If it's a photography project, this could be working with a model on a shoot. This could be doing portraits with people on the street. You could go out and shoot postcards for a close by local village, or even your hometown. Having a project to focus on and trying defining an end goal for yourself will help you hone your skills so much more than just picking up a new lens or slapping a new filter on the front of it. More complex than photography comes video, and video is actually how I got interested in cameras in the first place. And this is when you introduce movement, you introduce audio, and you introduce time into the equation of making images. Filmmaking is a series of problem-solving decisions, but that's part of the fun. Often the mistakes we make in our creative projects make way for the best and most innovative on-the-fly ideas. When we're working against a low budget or a limited amount of time, we then have to think creatively rather than throwing time or money at the problem. One of my favourite filmmakers from the UK is Danny Boyle. I can't find the interview, but he said in the past that his best ideas came from working on those low budget, limited resource films. Taking Shallow Grave as an example, working mostly within 1 or 2 locations with only a handful of actors to tell a feature film story, and it's one of his best movies. However, when he reached the big budgets from studios after making some good films, things didn't work out as well. Say the film The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio, Boyle talked about this, saying that with all that money and all that time and all that star power, problems escalated, and you throw money at a problem rather than trying to think outside of the box to solve it creatively. You often hear this from like top class creatives that too much time and too much money actually can be a problem for a production compared to working against a low ceiling. And this happens the same for us when we throw money at our photography to buy a new camera that has slightly better autofocus. It's not going to improve very much. We're just going to spend more money. This is something that I feel quite strongly about, and I actually talked about this much more with some real photography advice in this video here on why you don't need a full frame camera to take amazing photos.